Well, hi kids. I'm excited to get to see you again today for our next Spy Kids lesson. And I have Boynton here. Boynton, it's good to see you. I noticed today you don't have any Spy Kid gear on. Are you just deciding that you're not going to be incognito anymore? Oh, okay. All right. And how could you do that today? Because you have courage. Oh, you have courage, and so you don't need your spy gear. Is that right? Okay. Hey, you know what? I want to tell you about a person from the Bible who had courage. Do you know who that is? It's Daniel. Oh, yeah, that's right. We've been talking about Daniel, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite stories. It's Daniel in the lion's den. Now, Boynton, would you be nervous to spend the night in a lion's den? Oh, Boynton's getting a little bit scared. Don't worry, I won't make you do that. Oh, he's so nervous. No, I would never make you do that, Boynton. No, unless the lion loved doggies. Yeah. But do you know that in the Bible we hear about Daniel who prepared hard and built up his good Christian character, and then when he spent the night in the lion's den, guess what? I'll tell you, it's a spoiler alert. He survived without a scratch. That's a pretty good part of the story, right? Well, I'd like to know, what animal would you be the most scared of spending the night with in a den? Would it be a spider? Maybe a lion? Alligator? Tarantula? What would be the thing that would scare you the most? Well, think about it and let me know what you think. Okay, Boynton, are you ready to hear our story about Daniel? Okay, now you might remember that whenever I say Daniel, you're either going to stand up or sit down with Boynton, okay? You can raise your hand and put your hand down too. But this is a good story. Like I said, it could be one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And this story comes from Daniel chapter 6. So here we go. Oh, I said Daniel. Oh, I said it again. There we go. Daniel was a solid man of God who always did what the right thing. The king was very impressed by him and gave him special treatment. The king's other officials were jealous of Daniel. So they came up with a plan to get him in trouble. They knew the only way they could get him was to set a trap having to do with his love and devotion for God, because he was very dedicated to God. You see, Daniel was a man of character. He prayed 3 times a day, giving thanks to God. And the king's officials knew that Daniel was a man of prayer. So they wanted to trap him. They told the king to make a new law that nobody was allowed to pray to anyone but the king instead of God. The king thought that was a great idea. Kind of had a big ego, right? And so he did just that. The king, and the punishment for breaking the rule was that the person would have to be thrown into the lion's den. I know, Boynton, that's scary, isn't it? Yeah. The king's official knew that Daniel would not obey this rule. They knew they would catch him. And they were right. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and he knelt down as usual. And he was upstairs in his room. Why would Daniel break the king's law? Because he knew that although obeying the king was important, God and obeying God was even more important. So Daniel was arrested and he was brought before the king. And the king had no choice but to order Daniel thrown into the lion's den. That's exactly what happened. It's okay, boy. Don't worry. It's okay. All right. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, and a stone was rolled over the entrance, and he was locked in. The Bible doesn't tell us what happened all night. We don't know exactly what Daniel did, but one thing was for sure. He was depending on God to rescue him. The next morning, the king ran down to have the stone rolled away. The king cared for Daniel. He yelled out, "Daniel, Daniel, was your God able to save you?" Daniel answered, "Long live the king. He was there and he was okay." Daniel survived a night with the lions because God protected him. Today, we are going to learn that when you are faithful to God, God will protect you also. Did you like our story, Boynton? Oh, but he didn't like the story about the lions. Yeah, I understand. Well, I'm going to have you relax a little bit. Yeah, maybe go take a bath or something. Okay, it's okay. And we will see Boynton next week as we learn our next story about Daniel. All right. In Psalm 55:16, it says this, "But I will call on God and the Lord will rescue me." And that is exactly what Daniel did. Daniel relied on God and God kept him safe even after a night in the lion's den. So here are a few tips on how you, as a spy kid, can survive a night with lions. Now, maybe we're not talking about literal lions. You're probably not going to get thrown into a lion's den, but you could get put into another situation that is scary. You understand what I'm trying to say? Maybe you have to spend the night away from home for the very first time. That could be scary, right? Maybe you have to start going to a different school or different grade. Maybe you're starting to think about that now as you're almost done with your current grade. You're going to be moving up to the next grade in the fall. Maybe your best friend is moving and you're worried about who's going to be your new best friend. There are lots of things that can cause us some fear, kind of like Daniel could have easily had fear when he was put into the lion's den. And so what do? Here are a few things, a few tips to help you through challenging times. The first thing that Daniel did was that he prayed. Do you remember how many times he prayed a day? That's right. Leading up to the time that he was going to be thrown into the lion's den, he was praying 3 times a day. That's a lot of praying, right? So he was building that relationship, that trust with God, even before he got put into a difficult situation. So I would encourage you to do that. I encourage you to talk to God. Now, don't worry about if you do it the right way or the wrong way. But maybe when you wake up, say, "God, thank you for this day." And maybe when you eat lunch, you say, "God, thank you for the food," right? And maybe when you go to bed at night, you say, "God, I want to lift up my friend who's sick right now. Help my friend get better. I love you, God, and I want to know you more." That's easy, right? Yeah, it is easy to pray multiple times a day, especially when you take pressure off and you don't have to do anything in one particular way. There are lots of ways to pray. Okay, so that's our first step, right? The second thing that Daniel did that we can also work on doing is obeying God, doing what God tells us to do. And we know that God asks us to treat our bodies right. God asks us to love our neighbors and to serve our world. And God asks us also to love God, right? Those are all ways that we can obey God. And when we do that, we may not find that we are as fearful about things. Okay, you ready for the next one? This next one kind of goes along with our other ones. It's obey God. If you obey God, follow God's laws, and live like God would want you to live, then you can face those challenging times in your life. And then finally, stay humble. Do you know what humble means? Is not to think too highly of yourself, right? That's right. When Daniel got let out of that lion's den, he could have said, "I'm number one. I'm the best. Everybody look at me." But he didn't do that, right? Daniel knew that God was the one that he should give all of the credit to, all of the glory to, because God kept him safe overnight with those lions. Those are all really good, important things for us as well to remember when we are going into hard situations that might be kind of scary or a lot scary. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful week. I just want to remind you that we are having on-site children's ministry now. On Wednesday nights, we have our choirs, and then we also have our devotion time. On Sunday mornings, we are having Sunday school at 9:45, and we also have nursery during worship at 9:45 and 11. And I would love to get to see you if you and your family are ready to start coming back on site. Otherwise, I will see you next week here on our video time, and I hope that you'll have a good week. Bye-bye.